Paddy, it's lovely to be here with you today.
Thank you.
And I know the last day we spoke, you were telling me about your school days.
I went to school and I was dyslexic in ways and was made right with my right hand. I was left-handed completely, and I found that as a huge disadvantage. Although one thing is, I never held it against anybody, because simply people didn't know. It's only as time gets on now that we learn an awful lot.
You told me a wonderful story in the early, when I came to chat with you just, about the bishop and going up and knocking the door. Can you tell me that little story?
We were noisy. We were second year and third years at St. Pat's College.
Yes.
And we were day boys going in to work, going in at night to study. And sure, our mothers and fathers thought we were studying away, and we were doing devil much all only acting the card. But we were up in one of the classrooms, and they had to turn on the whole heating, the whole area while we were there. But it was old Bishop Quinn's time, and he was a very conservative type of man anyway. And Father Terry McManus was the president of the college. And Father Terry was very small, and the bishop was a big tall man, and you'd see them walking around examining everything. So they decided in their infinite wisdom that they'd move us from the classroom to the basement.
Yes.
And the basement was full of lockers, naturally enough, and noisy and everything. And we were left there with this, so we decided we couldn't stay here.
Yeah.
And Father McManus came down and told us, well, the bishop has made the decision, and when he makes a decision, that is, he was infallible. So it couldn't be wrong. We thought about it as a couple of us anyway. Myself, Danny McCabe and Charlie Donahue.
Right.
So the three of us went up. We went up to visit the bishop's house at 9:30 one night.
Right.
So we went up to the bishop's house and knocked the door. And the lady came out, she did, and said, "What's wrong?" I said, "We're here to see the bishop." "And have you an appointment?" "No," I said. "Well, the bishop usually doesn't see people unless they have an appointment." "Oh, and she said, it's very urgent that we wanted to see him." She said, "Hold on." So she closed the door and we came back out in a minute and opened the door all wide up, so we're getting the entrance here. And we went in anyway, and we put our case to the bishop.
Yes.
He wanted to know who we were, but not that it meant much difference. I don't think he knew who we were anyway.
Yeah.
And he said, we made the case that we were the cold place it was and the noise and everything. And he said, go back to where you're there.
Right.
Where you were.
Where?
And go back there anyway. So we came down, and we were the first group that ever visited the bishop like that, unannounced.
Yeah.
And he gave in to us. I think he couldn't believe himself that three young students would go up and do it.
Absolutely.
But it felt to be important to us. We didn't want to be stuck at home all the time.
No.
So it was a chance of getting out and about, was to go into study halls. And we came down, and then it was up to the president's room. It was called the President's Stairs.
Yes.
And there's a whole lot of photographs of all the ex-presidents on it. And they were all photographed on it anyway. And you weren't allowed as students to go up the stairs.
Okay.
We said we were more important that night, so we went up the stairs and spoke to the president. And I told him, and he said to me, "Did you mention my name, that it was him that sent us?" "Oh no, we didn't mention your name at all." "Oh, thank God that," he said. He didn't. So it was got all around the school about us going up to visit the bishop anyway, but we at least got our way.
Fantastic, yeah.
I had two grannies in our house. There were two grannies in our house years ago. Granny upstairs and Granny downstairs. Granny upstairs stayed up all the time, and Granny downstairs went up and down the stairs. My mother was concerned about us going in 6 boys, and we used to visit our grannies regular. She used to be annoyed about us visiting her mother-in-law. That was my father's mother, because she spoke badly, and she spoke like a traditional Irish woman. Yeah. She called a door a doer,
yeah.
and the floor the floor. and a brish was a brush, and a board was a board, and she had all these things wrong anyway. So she said to us, not beginning to speak to your granny, but I thought it was a bit unfair on poor granny that she wasn't getting the same advantage as the other granny. So I decided I'd teach me granny how to speak properly. And I was very young at the time anyway. And what I did was I locked myself in the bathroom. And when granny came over to go to the toilet, open that door, she says, Pat. Oh, says I, say door, granny. I tell you, open that door and never mind that nonsense. It's called it a door, granny. Say door, granny. So she didn't give in, or I didn't give in, and my father had to be called in anyway, and climb up in the bathroom window, climb in the bathroom window, across the bath, full of clothes, and he got out. I thought he'd clatter me anyway, but he didn't, and he laughed and he enjoyed it about what I did on her anyway. So she came in and blessed herself, and she said, "Now you can make me water now in comfort." I started working in the ambulance service when I was about 7 or 8 years in the hospital, and what happened was I was supposed to go into it earlier on anyway. I thought that it was post coming up, but it was 21 to join the service.
Yes, you had to be.
But when I became 21 years of age, someone in Kells, the headquarters of the board, changed it to 25.
Oh, okay.
So I was left another couple of years waiting to get it anyway. But I had patience and I waited. And then I got to be a supervisor in the service first. And I was the youngest supervisor in the country. And I went to supervisors' courses and various things like that. And I always had a habit of asking questions.
Yes.
The nuns were great. I always got on great with the nuns.
Yeah.
I used to say one time when I was speaking at one function or other, I said that, you know, to get a permanent appointment in our hospital, you wanted to be able to sing in the matron's choir. I sang too.
Yes.
I sang too.
Yeah.
So anyone that sang in the matron's choir got everything. You looked after in that regard. I remember.
Paddy, what brought you to politics?
I was born into politics. Sheila De Valera asked me that one time years and years ago. I met her and she asked me. But I was born into politics. My father was a politician, he was. And in 1950 he was elected to Cavan County Council and served there for 41 years. Right. And it was natural, I always had an interest in it. I didn't play much football and some other outlets, and politics was one. And I found that I enjoyed politics and I enjoyed the characters. And I knew about politics all over Europe and the world and places like that. I took an interest in it. But there's one story I must tell you about getting involved in politics. My father was always falling out with the local common in Cavan town. And he'd get vexed and walk out and go home from a meeting. And there was a selection conference on in 1979. My father was proposed and someone else was proposed. And my father didn't want the second person to be proposed alongside me. He felt he was a threat to him. So my father pulled out and walked out of the meeting and went home. So when he walked out, wasn't I asked to do it? Right. And I accepted the nomination.
Yes.
And when I came home that night, well, he says he was butter and bread at the corner of the table. And he said to me, "They'll be out for me in the morning."
Yes.
"They won't." I said, "Why? What do you mean they won't? I'm going up and steady you." "And in the name of God," he said, "what are you at? You need get out at all," he said. And he jumped into the middle of the floor and started to shout. And my mother said, "Stop it, stop it, stop it." She says, "Leave it," she says. "You're going for the county council and keep going like that. He wants to go up for the urban council, let him go."
Yes.
And the two of you go up together and help each other.
Yeah.
So we did 2 elections together with doing that.
Fantastic.
And both of us were elected each time.
What would you see as your achievements?
And one of the greatest Fedford achievements was the swimming pool and leisure centre.
Oh, yes.
I was chairman of the council and met a lady one day in the town, and she said to me, "You're mayor of Cavan this year." I knew her very well. I knew there was something coming up. She says, "What are you going to do about the swimming pool that was never done for years in Cavan?" Well, it's very difficult. I want no excuses. She says, "What will I do?" I said, "Write a letter on a piece of paper and ask for the council to do something about it, and I'll bring it up at the council." So a large meeting took place in the town hall, and I was chairing it. And a friend of mine, Brian Sullivan, came along, he did, and he proposed that the chairman of the council would always be chairman of the swimming pool committee, and that it tied them all together.
Oh, yes.
But the next chairman, a good hillman, Terry Argy, said that I should stay on, so I stayed on in it anyway. But we gathered up 250,000 towards the provision of the pool. There were 3 walls, and it lay up against the third wall. There was the leisure centre.
Yes.
And that saved money with various things. We doubled 2 shallow ends.
Fantastic.
We had, as well as that, sauna and different things like that. Brought those into it, and an exercise area.
Yeah.
And it was practically contracted from the beginning.
Brilliant.
We never run it from council staff, because we always felt that if we tried a new experiment, and that was that we run it by contract.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be very successful for the last 18 or 20 years.
Fantastic amenity to Cavan.
It is, and it worked out well. That was one of the best. Another thing I liked was smaller housing for old people.
Excellent, yes.
I did the ones on the Cockhill. That was, the one with the porthole. I was involved in getting them going. There's another thing there too. The Green Lake here beside, we got the Green Lake
That's
done
beautiful,
up.
yes.
The park I always a great belief in parks and things like that. The Con Smith Memorial Park.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I promised the Smith family that it was dragging on a long time that they'd do it. But it's turned out to be a lovely park.
Oh, it's beautiful, it's beautiful.
It's a top class park. A tidy town.
Yes.
I got very much, we were one of the first people, a small town to appoint a gardener. A horticulturalist.
Yes.
And we appointed a Bernie McGovern. The manager said to me when I brought it up, the first manager said, "No, we have no money for doing the like of that." And then David Mackey came, and he said to me, "I see where you're looking for it." Yes, as I wrote it down, but it was rejected. "Well, would you mind if we appointed one?" "Not at all," I said, "we'd be delighted."
Brilliant.
And we followed it up anyway, and we appointed it, and it was one of the most successful things we did around Cavan.
Oh, beautiful.
It was.
The flowers and the displays are beautiful. Paddy, you were the chairperson of the Parkinson's at the minute in Cavan. And with all your experience, your political career and your working career, I'm sure you can offer something to this association in Cavan.
Well, I'm diagnosed 34 years about that. And of course, when I got diagnosed, I started to inquire about what was going on and discovered there's no Parkinson's group at all in Cavan.
Right.
And nobody in Cavan had Parkinson's.
Oh.
It was never heard tell of.
Right.
So I was diagnosed anyway and sent off, and I started to look round, and we discovered there's 3 registered people in the 2 counties of Cavan and Monaghan with Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And now it's up to 200 or more.
Really, yes.
There is. You see, it's an old person's disease, and it was unusual for a person of my age to get it.
Yes.
And more younger people are getting it now. They are.
Yeah.
And it's not become an epidemic, but it's increasing in volume all the time. And it affects everybody different ways.
Okay, it's part of.
But I spent a lot of time in the earlier days of Parkinson's ringing up and talking to people with Parkinson's.
Yeah, yeah.
And we set up a group in Cavan.
That's fantastic, yeah.
And the 3 of us set up the group. And I remember only 3 turned up, that's right, 3 only turned up to the meeting.
Yes.
And myself, and I mentioned him, Molly Smith was the lady.
Oh, yes.
Molly Smith of Sedone. She joined, she said, no, we'll go ahead with it.
Yeah.
So we said we'd go ahead with it. We were about 40 or 50 members now.
That's brilliant. That's great. Yeah.
It took a while, but I think one thing I believe is that groups should be coming together.
Yes, Paddy, I do, yeah.
The Parkinson's and MS are alike in ways.
Yes.
And the 2 groups should be working closer together.
Definitely.
And using equipment and using services, for instance, buildings that they're exercising and things like that.
Absolutely, yes.
And they should be using far more of that,
yes.
doing it together, rather than everybody building their own empire. I'm pension age now, I suppose, and I should be retiring, but I don't want to.
No, you won't retire, not at all. Age is only a number.
Age is only a number.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I didn't lose all my good looks anyway.
No, you still have, that's what I was saying, you still have your good looks, and you don't look that age either.
I'm be careful, I'm getting ahead of myself.
You got a big head here. First of all, it's lovely to be here in Killashandra Community Council Resource Centre, and thank you so much for coming in tonight. It's almost symbolic to be here in the centre, because this was originally the Institute. Danny, you had a wonderful story to tell me about actually acting, being on the stage there.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, it all boils down to one man, Sergeant Goya. So the sergeant came over to us and he organised football for us.
Right.
You know. Then he asked us to come into the CYMS. That was a little hall where the car park is now.
Yes.
So we decided, whatever was about him, we followed him and we all went there. And all that was there was a broken table tennis and that little finger football. That was it, but he had the personality and he organised a place.
Right.
So he did. And this was to raise money to build the first hall, actually. You know?
Yeah.
And he got together a lot of people now. I was just one short section of it. There was 3 or 4 different plays going on, but they were all, you know, very short. The one I was in, I played this old farmer, and I was a bit fond of the drink, right? And this particular morning when I got up, I came in a bad deal with the wife, and yeah, because the bull, he wasn't doing his business. He wouldn't work at all. So I decided after breakfast I had to go into town and see the vet and get something of it. This right. So when I go to the vet anyway, and truly enough, he gives me a bottle of stuff. He puts it in a Guinness bottle, screw on a bit of a paper into it, and off ahead. But unfortunately, I went into the pub on my way home and got a bit there, lost there, and stayed there nearly all day. I came home drunk. And of course had another row with the wife anyway, and she stormed off and I fell asleep in the chair. So anyway, while I was asleep anyway, a burglar came in. And this was a problem. I made a mistake during this. There was a teapot there and I was supposed to pour myself a cup of tea and drink it, but I forgot to do it. And the burglar came in and I was asleep, he grabbed all my pots and pans, threw them in a jukebox, in a jute bag on his bag, and was walking off with them and water dripping out of the bag. Well, the crowd loved it, even though it was never intended to happen. The only problem was in the front of the Institute Hall there was 5 or 6 legs.
Oh yes.
Just sticking up.
Yeah.
And everybody was afraid to hear people say, oh, telling them to keep away from the bullets in case the water got on the bullets. And anyway, he got away with the whole lot. He went into the next room, and I woke up. And I was an awful hangover the whole lot. So of course I seen down a Guinness bottle and thought it was Guinness.
Yes.
So I got it. And I drank it, but of course it was the bull's concoction. Instead. And anyway, at that, the burglar came out of the other room with the bag, and I just went mad. I put my head down, put my hand on this, and racing after him like a bull, rolling around the stage.
Fantastic.
And that was really it.
What age were you then, Danny? Like
About 14.
14, that's extraordinary. So like the venue was packed that night?
Oh, jammed.
Yeah.
And there was music, there was people playing music, groups and all there playing.
It was like a variety.
Yeah, variety nights, yeah. Oh, we packed it out two or three nights now. We'd done it out in the convent. We'd done it in a couple of places.
I walk the town of Killashandra today, and my childhood memories of it were like, I suppose, the shopping centre, like some of the shopping centres we have now, because you could get everything and anything here.
Anything and everything. Just behind us here was Joe Stewart's, a needle to an ankle, and here pictures of Joe's shop. There was, when you got into his side, he had all these little drawers. And you mention it, he'd go over and he'd pull it out, and he was there to us, I think it was 96. And the week before he left, he had been ill. I remember going into the shop to get something, and I got a few things. It was for here, the resource centre, and he tore off a bit of an old brown bag, put it on, and wrote the price of the items and totted them up. And I looked and I thought, if I go into some of the shops, in the modern shops with their tills, they wouldn't have a clue, they wouldn't know, and they wouldn't be able, if you give them a £5 note, they wouldn't know what change to give you, unless you press the button on the till. Now, if Joe's shop was a menagerie, Emma's shop was absolutely out on its own. She had anything you would get. It just reminded me of Wellworth and Enniskillen, where you'd go in and the counter, you'd have that side of needles, pins, everything. And there was singles and spools and wool. She had everything in it. Everything you would want. And I'll tell you the other thing I remember about her. If she didn't have to have something, if you went in for a 4-inch black zip, she'd hand you out an 8-inch white one, and she'd convince you that was what you wanted. And if you went in for a button of some kind, and she hadn't it in a drawer, she'd go to the top of the house and she'd take it off a coat or something and bring it down to you.
You never came out without buying something, because she would have her own homemade bread. And
jam.
In the summertime she'd have maybe vegetables from the garden. You always jam, she had the jam and wool. It was a marvellous shop for work.
And they'd a half day on a Thursday. And hers on a Tuesday, and herself and Joe went out the road in the autumn and picked the blackberries, and the next day she had a blackberry jam on the counter. And along with that, she was very, very kind and charitable. She sold, made curtains, repaired items, anything you wanted. She was wonderful. And those are the personalities and the people you think about.
When you go back to, it's such a vibrant town. You had the creamery, you had the co-op. I'm actually looking at John M. Locke here on the wall here, reference to the Locke family, and I know, Kathleen, you can tell me a little bit about the setup of the co-op.
Yeah, well, Mr. Locke, I don't know whether it was Tom or John, but they called a public meeting with the intention of setting up a co-op in September 1896, and from that the co-op started, but it was called Dromully Co-op at the time, and they started off selling linseed and whatever fertilisers were available, and farm inputs was what they were selling first. But then it very quickly became the creamery, and there was a huge market for butter in this area. Everything that was bought when they were building the co-op came from Belfast. The whole trade was with Belfast. It wasn't with Dublin at all.
Yes.
And the second biggest butter market in the country, Cork was the biggest.
Yes.
Belturbet was the second biggest. And all the butter went from Belturbet to Scotland and north of England. And it was sold in Fertons before the co-op started, but once the co-op started, they went in on that trade, and they had a ready-made butter market for their milk.
In this town, you'd have a lineup of horses and carts and cans and right up
right
the town.
up the street, yeah.
Right, it was right up the street, and tractors when they came in,
That's right.
they were all there, and there would be a lineup there from 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And 1 and 2 o'clock of the day before it finished, and we could always tell you the last man in. I not mentioned his name. And the other thing was, some of them came up from the creamery, and they did a turn.
Yeah.
But it was difficult to get past some establishments
Oh, yes.
to go home. But the thing was, the town was a hive of activity.
Absolutely.
We did Heritage Day in the hall last Sunday,
Yes.
and we covered bits. We were asked by the Heritage Council to talk about pastimes and so on. And we had a bit of music and dance afterwards. But the main focus was on a grant which we got to research the bricks in the Rat Church. Now, the handmade bricks, and they last Sunday afternoon, they brought along Arnie Bricks from Fermanagh, came up and gave a presentation on brick making, and it was fantastic, and a demonstration on making handmade bricks. And we're going to do a bit of research to see if we can find the clay that the bricks in the church, which were made in the late 1600s,
Yes.
where the clay came from.
And Kathleen, I want you to tell me about your little involvements and your community drama and your activities with the Active Age and all of that.
It went back to the Abbey putting on a programme where they would get in a group of elderly people, and a facilitator would come from the Abbey, and she would throw out a sentence like, "Today is the fair day, think about what could happen."
Yes.
And she had people from Kilishandra and Clonus and Cavan, and we met in Clonus. But I got the taste of the drama from that. And then that peace movement, they had a programme for community drama, and they were inviting people to join to do this programme. It was a one-year programme, and it was a weekend a month. And in the social services we talked about it, and nobody was doing anything, and in the end I said, to hell, I'll do it.
Fantastic.
And off I went, and I had a great time.
Well, you know, Marie, I'm very struck by the fact that you worked under some of the peace projects here.
Yeah.
You were a motivator of community and of people in this area.
Yeah. Well, I was employed here, fortunately, under the peace process, and that would have been Peace 2,
Yes.
if I remember. And it was all about building communities and binding communities together.
Yes.
And some of the projects were done at the time were the drama, which was a great way of involving people together. And at that stage were a lot of women who hadn't a terrible lot of education. I'm talking about 30 years ago.
Yes.
They had missed out, and they had missed out on certain skills. And the drama was fantastic for their own personal development.
Yes.
It worked out well, and it set up the drama in the community.
Bredge, you were involved in a drama project linked to the Abbey. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
The Abbey did it for through the Positive Age in Cavan. We travelled to Clonus, my God, every Monday for, I think about 4 years.
Yeah.
And we did it, what they were doing was drama and process, they called it.
Yes.
And we had a facilitator down every Monday, and some weeks she'd have maybe a trainee lady with her.
Yeah.
Well, she gave us a line, and we had to make our own stories. And it was unbelievable what we came up with.
And you remember,
You know, we talked about the boxing club was here, Danny.
That's right, it was the Market House.
Yes, the Market House.
There was a boxing club up there, was a ring,
Yes.
a bag hanging from the oak, and there used to be boxing matches in the Ritz Ballroom.
Oh,
Yeah, being proper competitions.
competition, that's when they're on their competition.
Yeah, that's their own company, not in the market. That's only for training. But they actually ran proper boxing matches, competitive boxing in the institute.
Bredge, would you like to tell me about the Ritz Ballroom here in Kilishandra?
Oh yes, yeah. Well, I was in it dancing before I even came to Kilishandra at all to live, and I met my husband there
Yeah.
on a night out just with a couple of the girls from the old surgical hospital. All started from there, so I came to live then in Kilishandra in '62.
Okay.
And the dances were going strong that time. My God, it was the best of bands. You know, I can't remember nearly the name of them now.
Can I just switch you back for a little bit? Any of you have any memories of Tops of the Towns? I know we talked about Lil Smith and that. Any little memories at all being at the Bredge? Were you ever at Tops of the Towns?
Well, the ones that were done by the factory,
Yeah, that's the way it started.
that's the
Yeah.
ones that started.
McCormick's.
But they were, and you know, they were all workers from the factory, and they were fabulous.
Yeah, and I mean, Lil went on to her own fame with Opportunity Knocks.
Oh yes.
Huey Green.
Huey Green, she went on.
And I don't know what did they do. They didn't do heavy drama. They did.
No.
It was sort of a bit of comedy and variety.
Pieces from music.
And dancing and No, they were lovely. Like, at that time, it was great to have something like that to go to.
I want to thank you so much for coming in here tonight. Kilishandra needs a revival. I think it's in the hands of this community that has so much talent, so much vibrancy. That's the gifts and the talents that have been here previous to give it a little bit of a revival. John, I'm so privileged to be here in your house today. John, you're probably one of the people that's described as the man to go to when you need anything got to do with theatre or the arts in Cavan. Always obliging, always a trailer or a lorry or a van ready to take something from A to B.
And even if we're not here, the lorry is still available.
The lorry is still available. That's for just... John, I'd like you to tell me about this beautiful house, your home here, John.
Well, the house was built in around about the 1860s, built by a man called Thomas Locke. He wasn't the MP for the county, he was the MP for somewhere in London, I think, but the home house was where the Holy Rosary nuns were in Kilishandra. And himself and the brother started the Kilishandra co-op movement in about the 1890s.
Yes.
Then he also started the golf links up in the field behind the house here. At one time this house probably had about 200 acres of land around it.
Yeah.
Now there's I have about 16 or 17 around the front. He started the golf links in the field behind the house here about the 1890s. It moved out to where it is now in the 1930s. He was in the house for about 50 years, so the house is about 150 years old. We're here over 50 years. The first family was Locke's, the second family was Finley's.
Yeah.
Now, Jackie Maloney's great-grandfather would have been the Finley, that's her mother's side. Now, the family has a history in the sense that probably the Caravaggio painting is one connection that the house has to the one that was found up in the Jesuit retreat house in Milltown there about 10 or 12 years ago.
Yes.
And I, in a sense, linked in the provenance of the picture from the time it was painted to when it obviously reappeared.
Yes.
So it turns out anyway that this is regarding the Caravaggio painting and the Findlays that were in the house. There was a famous Father Findlay in the 1920s, very much involved in the co-op movement. There was an RIC inspector shot dead by the RIRA in Gorey in County Wexford, I think it might have been. The widow was very friendly with Father Findlay. She left Ireland in the 1920s, went to Scotland, either married a Scottish shipbuilder or a Scottish ship owner. She died in 1947. In her will, she left this picture of Father Findlay for the help that he was to her when she was widowed in the 1920s. And the picture arrived over from Scotland and hung in the retreat, in the retreat house in Milltown from 1947 until it was found about 15 years ago. So that period now, where the Scottish shipbuilder owner got the picture, nobody knows, but it linked in a certain length of time.
And where's that picture now, John?
It's now in the National Gallery.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And people often ask me now, how do I get so much involved in all the things I'm involved in over the last 50 years? I say, if you were ever involved in a 6 weeks carnival, everything is easy after that.
Yes.
Now, first of all, the marquee came from Porto. The boys' band, incidentally, was the organisation that was running the carnival. It's a fundraiser. And there was a great committee, Kevin Gilduff, they're nearly all dead now. And Kevin Gilduff, Mick Gagan of the pub down the town, Brian Eddie Coleman's father was on the committee, PJ Carroll, Micheál Smith, Paddy Riley. Anyway, the first thing had to be done out now where the supermarket is opposite the Mediview. That was the site for it. And the marquee would arrive from Portumna, 6-pole marquee. And they dropped the marquee and leave one man with it, and you had to get 25 or 30 men to pull the pole up, to pull the tent up.
Yes.
And then there was a man with the floor, and he put the floor down. You had to get a load of gravel to get into the feed. Then you had to get a load of 4-inch blocks to put the floor sitting on. Then the man that came with the marquee would spend a week putting the floor together. Then you would obviously then put grano on the floor. Now grano today, people wouldn't know what it is. Grano looks like soap powder. And you used to skate it on the floor and you used to slide up and down to make it slippy.
Oh, yes.
That was to make it slippy. Then you had to get the tiles. The tiles were buckets. Buckets. Miss Stevens was the health inspector at the time, and she had to check with the toilets up to speed, so they were already buckets. The women's toilets had buckets, the men's toilets only a sheet of galvanised iron. Then you had the health and safety. Val Maguire would come out, the fire officer, to check with the fire doors open automatically.
Yes. You
had to push the voice. There had to be a certain pressure that you had to push the thing. Now anyway, marquee opens, or the dance opens on a Friday night. And understandably at the time, the big band locally was the Mighty Avens. And you'd have a relief band go on about maybe 9 o'clock at night to play the band's instruments until 11, until the band arrived. And you had the Shamie Sexton or Eamon McEntee. These local fellas used to play groups and to play the band, and so they play until about 11:30. The band would arrive on stage, but there might be about 40 or 50 people in the hall. Everybody would be driving up and down outside to see was there a crowd. And they wouldn't pull up unless there was a line of cars, and it was a catch-22 because if they didn't pull up, there was nobody. So on you finally they start pulling up. And the next thing you'd have in around about maybe 1,200 people, or 1,100 people in a marquee that was only licensed to hold 600. Yeah. And then after the dance was over, the posters were in around maybe about 2 foot wide by about 3 foot deep.
Yes.
You couldn't put the posters up at the one time. After the dance was over on the Friday night, I'd go out with the posters for the Sunday night dance, and I'd have to drive from Cavan to Arva, Cavan to Killashandra, Cavan to Virginia, Cavan to Curtail, Cavan to Balturba, Cavan to Arva, Cavan to Killashandra. At 3 o'clock in the morning, they put the posters up to take the other ones down. Yes. And I remember being outside on the Clonus Road at Newton Butler there one night, before you went into Newton Butler, up in the pole about 2 o'clock in the morning. The next thing I heard noise underneath me. And the next thing I looked down, British soldiers with black faces with torches shining up to see what I was at. I didn't realise the danger that was involved in. And once they seen it was obviously a dance, they said with the cockney, good on you, mate. You know, like, but it's only in hindsight that I realised the danger that I was in. I didn't realise it at the time. And then you had to go out to follow and dance. Whenever the next night the dance was over at 3 o'clock, go out and take the posters down, put them up again, posters down, put them up again. And when you went on for 6 weeks of that, everything is easy after that.
Absolutely. John, tell me your involvement with the Cavan Drama Festival.
Well, the Drama Festival, going back, it's probably at this stage probably 50 years maybe.
Yeah.
Probably 53 or 54 years. We were very friendly with Brian Sullivan. Brian was obviously very much involved with the drama for probably 4 or 5 years earlier than that. And I got involved as usual, as you do, without wanting to get involved. Then as the years passed, at the time now I got involved at the very beginning, Tom Fitzpatrick, who since died, was the chairperson. Then Andy O'Brien was the chairperson following that. Phil Cullivan, God rest him, was the next chairperson. Peter Brady, now is Rachel Cullivan, Phil Cullivan's daughter. So anyway, but the festival, understandably, going back to the town hall at the time that I got involved in it, the seating was kitchen chairs, wooden chairs that were linked together with a piece of 2x1 underneath. So instead of having individual chairs, you had a line of 5 or 6 chairs. Then there was new seating bought in the 80s, I think it might have been, plastic seating. Now the stage at the time, the lighting was so simple, it was what they called single-eights. And the most important piece of equipment you had to have when you were putting on a show, whether a musical or a drama festival, was a length of 2x1. Because you couldn't, this single-eight was a thing, it was a sliding mechanism on the wall with 8 sliders. Yes. And if you wanted to black out, instead of having 12 fingers, you had to have a piece of 2x1, you pulled the whole lights down at the one time to have a blackout. Because individually you wouldn't be able to pull them down unless you had 2 people standing side by side, and they wouldn't get the accuracy anyway. And at that time the lights were old Patron 21s and Patron 23s, and I gather today they're worth more now than what they did cost brand new. So anyway, that's the drama. Then there was musicals. Yes. Cavan Musical Society, you had Francis Galligan, you had Bill Henry, God rest him, involved in it, and it was, that went on in between the dramas. Mel Doherty, understandably, was part of he was the pantomimes, that's going back even further than that. Yeah. Mel Doherty and poor Seamus McCormick, who died there about a month ago, and Father Turlock Riley. Yeah. They were unique things. Yes. Then there's the Cold Tory Aaron concerts. Yes. Mel Doherty MC, just before Martin Dunn, who became obviously very high profile. And Mel would invite probably 25 different groups, hoping that 4 would turn up. 29 would turn up, and instead of finishing at 11:30 at night, it would be going on until 3 o'clock in the morning. And obviously you'd have people applauding to get them off the stage, but the people on stage would think that they were being applauded to stay on the stage. The set dancers and to stay another set, and they wouldn't get off the stage. And Mel would have to go out and make out that it was an emergency, there was somebody else. So this is... Yes.
Did you actually ever perform on stage? Were you ever on stage yourself?
God almighty, no.
No.
And I never appeared in any photographs.
Right. I
was involved with the Hacklers, Dermot Healy, the original. There was 9 of us in total, I think, from my recollection, the Waiting for Godot. And didn't realise it was 1983, which is approximately, 50, many years ago was that? 40 something, is it 40 years ago? 35, 36 years ago. We rehearsed down in St Patrick's College. Michael Harding's brother Brendan was down doing Prompton. He's a surgeon, I think, down in Ulster, I think, at the present time. Fred, the big tall Dutchman, Fred lives down at Carrothrog Bridge. Fred, he supplied the 3. The basic set things, the basic thing was only a 3. 5 on stage, there's 3 dead, only 2 alive. That'll be Paul Dolan and Paddy Murray. There was Dermot Healy, the 5 on stage, Dermot Healy, myself, Damien O'Brien. I was doing the lighting and also transferring the set. We entered 2 festivals that year. Now normally a festival needs, or a group needs 5, 6 festivals to get 2 wins, 2 seconds or whatever it might be to get in. That particular year, if you got 2 wins, you got in. So we got into Ballyshannon, and we got into Cavan, understandably. We won Ballyshannon and we won Cavan. Yes. Then we were going to Athlone. And normally when you're going to Athlone, you go maybe 2 or 3 hours ahead of the normal schedule, because this is the big one. Myself and Damien O'Brien went to Athlone at 11 o'clock, obviously whatever time, 10 o'clock on the whatever, it was a Tuesday week, I think it was a Tuesday morning. Arrived down to the Dean Crow Hall, left in the set. No, I could do nothing until Dermot arrived to set the lights, because it was all lighting. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock came and no sign of Dermot. Jesus God, are we in the right hall, the right town, the right night? Next thing, Dermot arrived in around about 6 o'clock, and the hall in Athlone, the Dean Crow Hall, is a very wide stage, and we had ladders up setting lights. All the lights are nearly out front of the house. Yes. We had to take the ladder down, obviously, the audience were coming in. We hadn't the lights set to an exactness, but that was beside the point. Yes. There was a Scotch adjudicator, I forget what his name was, he died last year, the year before. And we knew there was a buzz in the audience, and he came backstage, he done his adjudication. Yes. And he mentioned in the adjudication that he hadn't seen Waiting for Godot done in the circus ring effect before. It was accidental. There was a pool of light there. It wasn't planned. Dermot's car broke down, incidentally. This is the reason I mentioned about Dermot arriving. Dermot's car broke down. His mother-in-law's car, Mrs. Cusick, it broke down, and he went into Tractor Motors, which had a garage at the time, the hardware shop. Yes. Paddy Murray was working in homemakers. Paddy was heading for Athlone in around about 5 o'clock. And the next thing he seen, as he said to him straight himself, there was beardy face peeping around the corner of the garage door. Like, he was the only person with a beard at the time.
Yes.
And if he hadn't been looking out, Paddy would have went on. Dermot mightn't have turned up. So obviously, so anyway, that was okay.
Dermot was directing it.
Dermot directing it.
Yeah.
So I could do nothing with the lights on. Dermot was
No,
there. He didn't
no.
arrive until, 5, 6 o'clock. So there was a buzz in the audience. That was okay. Finished Tuesday night. I got a phone call the Monday morning. I was the only person with a phone.
Yes.
From a fellow called Sharkey in the Evening Press, the Irish Press, to find out what did I think of the wind last night. I said, what wind? He said, the Hectors. I said, where were they last night? After I was finishing I'm not competitive.
Yes.
After I was finishing the Monday night, Tuesday night, I was finished.
Yeah.
So that was okay. So the one All Ireland, well, that was great. I had to make a few statements to say we were delighted.
Yes.
We got a week in the Peacock Theatre,
Oh, fantastic.
which is part of the win, obviously. The Cavan Men's Association done a huge amount of ticket selling in Dublin. This was a culture group coming in from rural Ireland, putting on a
Absolutely.
sophisticated play. So anyway, that was okay. I was going to Lourdes anyway that week, so I couldn't do the lights, but I wouldn't be allowed to do them anyway because I'm a professional theatre.
Yes.
The hall, there was 120 people in. Myself and Dermot Healy were sitting on the steps leading down to the stage.
Yes.
I noticed there was a fella in the back row of seats with his 2 feet up in the seat in front. I said, this looks like a farmer out of context.
Yes.
Like he was laying back with his 2 feet up on the seat in front.
Uh-huh.
This man, does you know where he is? Turns out Con Houlihan of the Evening Press. The Evening Press sent Con Houlihan down to do a review on the Waiting for Godot, a rural group from the back end of nowhere doing this. It hit the front page the following day.
Oh, fantastic.
And they were queuing round the block until the day it finished, I believe. I wasn't here, I was in France and Lourdes.
You've walked and travelled the Camino.
Caminos.
Caminos.
Listen, I have done 5 of
the
them.
expert
Maura.
on the Caminos.
I've done 5 of them, and I was even last night, I said, that's it, I'm not going to do another one. And then last night, I will tell you, the first one I done was the main one across northern Spain from Jean P. de Port to Santiago. 250,000 people do that every year.
Yes.
The next one I done about 5-6 years ago, I done the one from Lisbon in Portugal
Yeah.
to Santiago. That's the toughest one. I slept in 3 fire stations. I done another one 3 years ago from Seville up to Santiago. That's 1,000 kilometres.
Yes.
Up through Salamanca. Then last year I done one from Irun, San Sebastian, Santander, Gijon, Bilbao along the coastline.
Right.
And this year I done one from Oviedo down through the Primitivo down through down to Santiago.
Yeah.
And I said, that's it. That's carrying a backpack with 10 kilo.
I know.
Never got a blister, never got a problem ever. And I don't walk as a pastime.
Yeah.
Next thing, that's it, I'm finished. Then I take up, I looked at a thing last night on a YouTube thing, obviously it says, the longest one is from Valencia,
Yeah.
1,300 kilometres. You go to Toledo, Avila, listen.
Are you
said,
going to do it?
I don't know, don't
Yes.
encourage me.
Yeah, we'll
Don't encourage me.
Yeah, because it just
John, I want to ask you about the song contest.
Aye. Well, now the song contest originally it was organised by Anne Lennon and Maura Maloney, George Maloney's wife. And the reason that they started in Cavan, the Castlebar Song Contest was the big song contest in Ireland at the time. And the 2 ladies used to write songs and enter for the Castlebar Song Contest. And they took exception to some of the results that were over in Castlebar some of the times. And they decided that they'd start up an opposition. And we started in the Sports Centre. Myself and Brian Sullivan were doing the lights. And the piano was up, had to be brought down from Cana House. Big overstrung German piano. And then obviously Phil Cullivan, Rachel Cullivan's father, was the chairman of the jury. Brian Finlay from the Mighty Apens was on the jury too. But anyway, it went on in the Sports Centre, and then it went transferred from the Sports Centre out to the Kilmore Hotel. So that went on, I think, for about, I don't know how many years. Must have been on 21 years, I
What
think.
year were you talking about initially?
We're talking about from the 70s into the mid-80s, from my recollection.
And was there any famous singers that came through those?
Cavan Girl, but that was the one that clicked, funny enough,
Yes.
now when you think about it.
Yeah.
Cavan Girl was the one that's been repeated. It's the only result that I remember that you can even identify that was a Cavan Song Contest
That's right,
winner.
yeah. That was
Cavan. RTE got involved, and it was an RTE for 2 or 3 years running, from my recollection.
Oh,
Then we get into the Cavan Art Society.
yes.
Now the Cavan Art Society, the chairperson, Miss Colanahilla, Mrs. Ferris of the Pig House Collection, Pat Nally, who was a unique individual. Pat was the Adult Education Officer of the VEC.
That's right.
He was ahead of his time. Sister Lucia, myself, Eamon Gaffney from the Celt, and we used to run, obviously, art exhibitions once a year down at the Protestant Hall, which is now the library. We had musical events. Now, there was a famous harpist called Mary O'Hara, and she was in the Late Late Show on a Friday night. And Gabe Byrne asked her where was she taken, like what was her first event. So she said she was with the Cavan Art Society in the Monday night in the Protestant Hall. We had the place packed out with people with the free advertising we got with the Late Late Show. Now, the other thing, incidentally, we also, Noel Monaghan produced a play in the Presbyterian Church.
That's right. Glass Menagerie.
The Last Menagerie.
Yes.
And I remember another play that Noel was involved in, and Dead Can Dance were doing the backing music.
Oh.
Brendan Perry.
Yes.
But anyway, having Dead Can Dance doing the backing music is the same as having U2 doing the backing music for another. They're at the same, like worldwide, they're equally as in a smaller version.
Yeah. Briefly, the last day about the tops of the towns.
Tops of the town now, you see.
And Kilishandra, tell me a bit
Kilishandra,
about that.
McCormick's in Kilishandra was the big factory in Kilishandra at the time. And the main man in Kilishandra was a guard sergeant called Peter Maguire.
Yes.
And Peter was obviously, he was a lovely man. And he was the person that organised, and you had groups coming in from Northern Ireland, obviously factory groups.
Yes.
And I remember going back at that time, there was two families of girls in Kilishandra. You had the Tevens and you had, what's the second family? Lil Smith, she had 3 or 4 sisters.
Yeah.
And Lil, I was telling Lil there some time ago, I says, Lil, I remember you on the stage in the Kilishandra Community Hall wearing a plastic bag. And she turned to her daughter, who was a girl about 16 or 17, did I not tell you that? This was Peter Maguire. This was at a time when Ireland was very conservative.
Oh, yeah.
One of the dance scenes was obviously getting a black plastic bag and cutting 2 holes out for your 2 arms. And the bag would be probably shorter than the shortest mini skirt you could. And the think of girls in a rural community were up dancing on the stage with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Kilishandra was ahead of its time.
It was ahead of it. Definitely was that time. And Phelim Cox, the Cox family were.
The father was involved at the
yeah,
time. The
Phelim was.
father had an English accent.
Paul's
father,
yeah.
Phelim Cox. He was the MC.
Involved. Yeah.
He was a great man. Now, it was a very competitive thing.
Oh, very much.
It was very big in Limerick. It was very big in Waterford.
Yes.
This is the tops of the town because you had Waterford Glass going at the time. You had 3 or 4 very large firms in Limerick. It was basically big firms.
Big firms. It would have been a lot of fun.
See, it was sponsored by the firms, you see. Sponsored by the firms, and they would have spent a lot of money on costumes and on makeup and hirings, props and all that type of thing.
Yeah, when you think of Kilishandra, a small town, I know McCormick's was there, that was a big business, but still it was a small town.
It's a small town.
To produce such
see, like in Cavan now, obviously, Jackson's Garage had a group.
Yes.
That was a big garage, 4 garages at the time. Now, Seamus McCormick that died recently would have been one of the main men, and Mel Doherty.
Yes, Mel.
He worked in Jackson's Garage too. Oh, yeah. And the main person around here in regard that was Sister Mercy in St. Phelim's Hospital. Oh, yes. She was the main organiser.
The map of Europe.
Oh, the map of Europe inside in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Well, it's a map I bought in Aldi there about 5-7 years ago, and it's a big map of Europe from the top of Norway to the bottom of Greece. The car that I crashed in France last year has been in every one of those towns between Latvia, Lithuania, Poland. I don't know, that's what a car is for.
Oh, yeah.
It's for driving.
Absolutely.
And the nicest country, from my recollection, driving through was Norway. I was in it twice. And then you drove up through Norway, and as you probably know, Norway is all fields. Stick out like that. And there's an A6 road goes from Stavanger up to Tromsø and Narvik. Now, understandably, if you want to go inland, you'd be in 100 kilometres, in and out of 100 kilometres, in and out of 100 kilometres. So, understandably, you drive from here, we say, from Cavan to Dublin, and you stop at Virginia, and there's a ferry crossing over 2 kilometres across the road, across the fiord. There's postmen on it, there's ready-mix trucks, there's the school buses on it, and people are reading the papers and chatting. I'm looking out at the scenery. Oh, yeah. You then drive from that maybe to Navan, same road stops again. And then you obviously do the same thing and the same thing and the same thing. It's beautiful. The infrastructure in Norway is mind-blowing. It's the wealthiest country in Europe. So I continued on up to the very tip top and looked into the Arctic Ocean. Done that, seen that, and then back down into Finland down to Helsinki.
Yes.
Helsinki then on a ferry across to Tallinn in Estonia, down through Estonia into Latvia, into Lithuania, then into Poland, into Liechtenstein.
Yes.
All the countries the people should do it. That's what a car is for.
Absolutely. Not for sitting in the driveway. And the Sea House, John. Yeah,
it's available. There are marvellous people to allow it to be used.
But the town hall had their Halloween activities and extravaganza out there. You know, you were bussed out there, and all of a sudden these zombies appeared out of the...
That's right, and then you had a fella at the back door with a chainsaw getting you back in the bus. The imagination, I have to say, is what you need.
It was.
You needed obviously a combination of Philip's imagination,
yes,
Joe's organising ability, Cavan,
Yes.
Paul, everybody that was involved in it.
Absolutely fantastic. And then voluntary. I mean, everybody on that
Everyone
was
was voluntary.
voluntary. It was all
It was
voluntary.
unique.
Absolutely fantastic.
Like
Spectacle.
if you put that in your CV,
Yeah.
it'd do you good.
Absolutely.
When you think of Mal Riley bringing in the galvanised, me bringing in the galvanised iron for the last event, people thought it was going to Felix Gormley's. And it had to be brought back out. Poor Mal has since died.
I think Katrina didn't sleep for a few nights when she saw the construction at the front of
Listen,
the town hall.
and I have my forklift underneath it, and I don't have a forklift permit to operate. But once I was the owner of it, I could use it. And I ran out of gas, and we had to get gas out of Tommy Hewitt. The little things, honest to God, when I think back of it.
You know, but it was an
It was
amazing
unique.
spectacle.
It was a spectacle. It's even more recent times now. The major events now is films.
Films, yeah.
Obviously with Philip Doherty, and then obviously Noel Slack.
Yes.
Obviously I was up in Dublin there last Saturday week there up in the chocolate factory.
Oh, yeah.
This is up beside Bolton Street Vocational School. They're doing a film, some fella called Pat Short, I think he's a comedian.
Oh.
And now they're bringing up office stuff obviously for the set. Then I had to go from that down to County Wicklow to bring the stuff back.
John, I wonder how you got time between your work to do all the volunteering that you did.
I don't know.
You don't know?
Big problem I have is saying no.
No.
How can I say no?
And I suppose you were your own boss? Maybe
My own
in your
boss,
work.
this is the thing you see, you don't think, you just do
You
it.
just do
It
it.
comes instinctive, it's within you.
It's within you.
It's
yeah.
within you. You can't
Yeah.
say no, and I don't know. Long term, it pays off in the long term.
Okay. John, thanks very much for giving me your time, your wisdom,
Well,
your
you
inspiration.
haven't got the invite yet.